Roll Tide, everybody, and welcome to Cover Crimson. Fall camp has officially started. It's underway. We're going to talk about that here on the show. We got a lot of observations. Clint just got back from Tuscaloosa, so you're going to get his firsthand opinion of what he saw. Get in the comment section. Hit us up there. We're brought to you by Pearl River Resort, Philadelphia, Mississippi. They love Alabama football. They take care of us over here, but they want to remind you that they got a sports book, hour and a half from Tuscaloosa, right there in Golden Moon Casino. It's 2 and change from Birmingham. It's the closest casino experience you're going to get. And I'll tell you what, the slot game there is amazing. They got table games, all that stuff right there at Pearl River Resort. All right, let's get this thing going. And again, it's football time. We're back. Let's go. With Clint Lamb, I'm Mick Gillispie. Clint just back from T-Town, out there hanging with Alabama football. I know it was just the first day of practice, but it's football, man. It's great. Like we're on the trail to actually having some games.
Yeah, it was great to be back out there. A little bit hot. I mean, but you know what? I'm not gonna think Nick Saban after the first day of fall camp. Maybe it wasn't the first day, but one of the first days, he came in there and asked if the media looked soft. So I can't complain about the heat too much, or he might come out of nowhere and call me soft again. So, but it was warm. The guys were obviously getting a great workout, but just probably the number one thing that stood out to me kind of out the gate was just how physically impressive some of these guys looked. And granted, that's all they've been doing, not a whole lot of actual football practice. They ain't been strapping up the pads. It's been in the weight room. It's been in the training room for the guys who have been injured. So that's to be expected to some extent, but guys like Marshall Pritchett, I forgot that he was wearing 18 for some reason. And I see him with the tight ends and I'm like, that dude, who is that? Part of me thought it was Jack Samarco potentially because of just how big he looked. And Samarco, despite the fact that he's now listed in the low 250s, at one point he was 260. Some people thought even closer to 270. So it just as big and well put together as he looked, I'm like, is that Samarco? And they give us these roster updates. So I pulled it up and it was Marshall Pritchett. And I was like, oh yeah, this guy went from whatever he was. I know he was 235 in the spring, but he was like 215, 220 his senior year of high school. He's now up to 248. And he had a large knee brace on. He also had some shoulder issues. But, he looked great physically, man. And this is a pass catch or a catch first tight end that the biggest question we had about him was, can he come in and handle the grind of being an SEC tight end? If he's asked to block those big body defensive ends, maybe help out some with some tackles, do things like that, would he be able to hold up physically? And, you won't know until the pads come on, but from the looks of it, he looks way more ready to contribute in year one than I thought he would be. Caleb Edwards looked impressive as well, but I would actually say physically, despite the fact that Caleb Edwards is significantly bigger, a couple of inches, obviously having, 15 or so pounds on him, I thought Marshall Pritchett was the most physically impressive tight end that Alabama had out there today. And there were several other positions, and we'll be getting into those, that I thought looked great physically as well.
Well, it's pretty exciting. You're talking about football being back and guys that, on the first day have turned heads. And part of that's the off-season workout program. We were worried about the tight end position, but, physically seems like, at least Pritchard working pretty hard to be a guy that we could count on and that, is going to get a big opportunity. When you go out and get two guys in the transfer portal, it tells you that they were concerned about that position group.
Yeah, they were. And, part of it's just like when you see a position group depleted, you understand how quickly that can happen. Like, from Alabama's secondary, like I'm sure if they had a rash of injuries or something, that despite the fact that we're talking about how great it's going to be and, how deep it is, if you had the kind of injury bug hit that group that hit the tight ends, it would start looking a lot more depleted, a lot thinner, a lot faster. And so even though they were already loaded up in the secondary, you might have seen them exit the spring looking to add somebody in that group as well. So it's just the tight ends. I think they like the room. I think they like the combination of skill sets that a lot of these guys provide. They got some inline options, they got some move options, and they have some guys who can do both. But I do think that Brody Dalton and Jack Samarco, both of those two guys are going to help as far as the depth. But that's a pretty key position, and I'll continue to reiterate that it's not key position from the standpoint of targets and just needing a huge role in the passing game as far as you targeting those guys, but they do play a massive role as far as being a complementary piece and kind of straining defenses, whether it be horizontally or vertically, to kind of create spacing for others in the passing game. So I think that was something that was kind of missing this past season, but that group, it looks really good. Another guy who I thought looked great physically as well was Kelby Collins. I thought he was a little bit heavy in the spring, 6'4", 285, and we've talked about him a lot. He looks like a completely different player, even losing just 10 pounds. Looks leaner, meaner. This guy's going to be a bandit. I do think he's going to help on the interior. He's going to help at both spots, really. And I think that he provides some value. He looked a lot more comfortable working through a lot of those individual drills than he did back in the spring. But he looks a lot more physically ready. I was really impressed with him. Keon Keeley continues to improve. It's like every time we get to go out there and watch practice, and normally there's a pretty good period of time between, but he always looks cleaner technically on the sled drills and doing some of those things. And it's like, this guy, you can just tell he's putting in work. And is he perfect? No. But I think right now, man, this is as close as he's been to contributing, and I think it's certainly going to make a difference on Saturdays.
Well, it's awesome that we got football back again. And guys, what I want to tell you is if, as you hang out with us, don't forget that we are brought to you by our friends over at Residence Inn by Marriott Ocean City. That includes Keith. And look at that view there. Beautiful sunsets right there in Ocean City. Great seafood, awesome bars like the Bar Secrets, the Boardwalk, fishing tournaments, different art events, music events right there. The Next Round gang went, hung out there, loved it. And Keith wants you to swing by and check it out for yourself. So we appreciate them so much. Any other observations from day one? What was the experience like? What was it like when you showed up and realized, like, hey, I'm back again, and here's what Alabama looks like in pads, and Kalen DeBoer and Ryan Grubb, what were some of the, just like doesn't have to be anything specific, but what did you think when you got there?
I just, it looked like a team that was focused. Like I said, a lot of guys, you can go down the list, and I will. And at this point, when we're watching these observations, it's limited in what we're seeing. So we'll see more when we get the practice videos, the practice photos. We might have some more talking points, but right now you're watching them do very limited things. Like you can go out there and say, Keelan Russell's just making some throws, man. He's doing it against air. So there's not like you can take a ton away from it. So that's why I look at guys physically. Make sure, you can see the offensive line. Thought it was interesting. Gino Vandermark was working with the first team at left guard. Cam Dewberry is another guy who's in that competition. I actually think Dewberry will probably end up winning out, but I did think it was interesting that Vandermark was the first team guy today. You had Caden Proctor at left tackle. You had Parker Brailsford, Jaden Roberts, and Wilkin Formby, but I thought it was interesting. I didn't see Olasolinen. Now, granted, I only saw the offensive line briefly as they were kind of ushering us out. So it could have just been that I didn't see him, but right. I do know that one of the last things I saw was the two tackles, the number two tackles. It was Jackson Lloyd at left. It was Michael Carroll at right. Arkell Nugum was the third string left tackle, and Casey Poe was the third string right tackle. So I don't know if Olas is playing on the interior. I don't know if he wasn't out there. I haven't seen anything reported about that, so don't run with it or anything. But that is something that's kind of curious. But, so you'll get stuff like that and you'll pay attention to it and take note of it. Ty Simpson was leading the quarterbacks. Then it was Austin Mack. Then it was Keelan Russell. You had the running backs. It was Jam Miller, Richard Young, Daniel Hill, Draylon Washington. Kevin Riley, and then A.K. Deer, to be expected. Didn't get a great look at the wide receivers. That's something I will do tomorrow. But, going back to, how guys looked, Justin Hill looks fantastic, man. I mean, this guy's he just doesn't look like a freshman. And I'm amazed just watching him his senior year and seeing kind of photos of him during his senior season, looking where he's at now. It's amazing what these weight programs can do for you. I mean, and Alabama does it as well as anybody. He looks fantastic, great mover, very comfortable. Thought Jamarian Latham looked pretty good, has dropped a little bit of weight. That's pretty evident. He's moving a little bit better. Quay Russaw looks fantastic. I'm telling you, seeing him at 243 pounds, he looks filled out in a good way, but he also looks leaner. He looks more explosive. I mean, it didn't take a rocket scientist to figure out, just watching him go through those drills, that he's going to be a better player playing at a little bit of a lighter weight. And I cannot wait to see it. He is probably one of my biggest breakout candidates. Him, it's James Smith, and you'll get some other guys, Jeremiah Beeman, maybe an Edric Hill. Just there's guys across the board. But, Quay Russaw has been, I thought he flashed last season. Now it's time for him to put it all together. Today, I mean, he looked fantastic going through drills.
How much did they let you guys look at? Like, how long were you there? And what was the guidelines, or what were the guidelines for today?
So the way that it works is they have, like a concrete path, and you got to stay on it. So you can't go onto the field or anything, but it kind of works its way kind of all around the outside. And you can, if you're willing to walk all the way around, you can get over there and get a little bit of a better angle of the quarterbacks and everything. I didn't do that. Focused more so primarily on the defense today. We'll spend more time with the offense tomorrow. But it's typically, I think we went out there for period 6, and then what was it, 6, 7, and 8 maybe that we're out there for. And then during the 8th period, we got to start working our way back. And then after it's over, you're out. And I think they're 5-minute periods apiece, only like 15 minutes. So that's why I say we don't see a ton, but it's all, this is one of the reasons why a roll call is always a big deal, because it's one of the pieces of information that you can actually take away from it that's valuable. Now, that used to upset Nick Saban quite a bit, actually, but, I do think that you can take some stuff from it. You just got to know what to be looking for, know how certain guys, have been kind of transitioning, whether it be from a body type standpoint, like with Deontay Lawson. He was back out there, and he wasn't sporting a black no contact jersey. He was in his, standard typical white jersey. And I thought he was moving pretty well. Had the heavy knee brace. I mean, it's a big brace. I think it's on his right knee, if I'm not mistaken. But I thought he was moving well. And seeing him in person out there, I'm actually not as concerned about the lost weight as I was, because I still think he looks like a D1 linebacker. And I was thinking about, okay, this guy, he might have some issues as far as movement. I've never thought he was like a premier athlete. I've always thought he was a good athlete, but his football IQ and instincts and anticipation and all that stuff, I think that's always helped him as far as being in the right place at the right time. But seeing him go from 239 pounds last season to 228 pounds this year, I definitely think that can help him as far as the movement as he's getting back to being healthy. And, if he was playing at 239 still, that's a lot more weight on that knee. So as he's getting more comfortable, I kind of like the fact that he's dropped a little bit of weight, and that should probably help him a little bit.
Lost you guys for a second, but I got a backup. So when the internet goes out here at this hotel, just go right into the phone. It's like, I thought, man, Clint's internet's terrible. And then I realized it was mine.
So, Mick, what are you looking forward to seeing the most like I said, there's not going to be a whole lot you're going to learn in the early portions of fall camp. We'll get into what Kalen DeBoer said in his press conference, or at least some of what he said, but kind of what's probably the thing that you want to learn the most about this team in the early goings of fall camp?
And I think it starts with Alabama settling the quarterback position, knowing that Ty Simpson's the guy, and that everyone's comfortable with that. Not just like, hey, he's the guy that's been here the longest, but that he's ready to run the show. I think that's the first thing. And then the second thing is establishing the offensive line. You mentioned it. Is it going to be Dewberry? Is it going to be Wilkin Formby? Is it going to be, who's it going to be? What are we looking at? We got some spots that are pretty solidified. Roberts, Brailsford, obviously, Caden Proctor, but what are the other parts of that line going to be like? And are those guys ready to compete? And the guys that don't win, keep pushing. And if something happens, be ready to go. Jam Miller was great at running back. You mentioned running backs. I thought last year was kind of a letdown year for the running backs, but part of that could have been the offensive line. Justice Haynes wasn't the player that we wanted him to be. He wasn't the player he wanted to be, and he transferred. We saw Jam in games where they fed him the ball, like in the Auburn game, the Iron Bowl, where he stepped up and played the type of football that we thought he could. I feel really good about wide receiver, and I feel really good about the defensive secondary. I worry about what they're going to do up front. I think they've got a good front line, and even the second string's good, but doesn't feel like they have the depth that we had back when Bama was winning national championships. But that's everybody right now. So those are the questions I have. And then, obviously the impact that Ryan Grubb's going to have on the offense.
Yeah, and talking about the running backs, during his press conference, Kalen DeBoer did bring up Dre Washington, the Louisiana transfer, and he said something that was interesting, and I wanted to kind of point it out because sometimes I forget too. Chris Braswell, I was reading a story about him for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers earlier today. They were talking about just how much more confident he's playing, how much more comfortable he is in that system now that he's going to be in year 2, and they're expecting big things from him. And it's like he gets to Alabama and he takes a little bit of time. He gets to Tampa Bay. He's not an immediate impact player or an immediate even significant contributor for them. But now that it's entering year 2, it's like some guys just take a little while to pick things up. And with Dre Washington, we forget, even though he was a transfer, he's got D1 college experience. He was playing in a new system. It asked a lot of its guys. There's going to be a transition period. And so where he was kind of trending as far as the spring relative to where he could be now, because what Kalen DeBoer essentially pointed out was, he had a really good practice today, according to DeBoer, but also he's saying, hey, he's getting more comfortable. And, the things that you were having to focus on that could be viewed as distractions, meaning you're trying to remember what to do on a snap in, snap out basis. So as far as instincts and letting just your, natural talent take over, you're thinking a lot more. So he essentially was saying he looks better. He's kind of gone through that period during the spring, and we're starting to see more of the Dre we were expecting kind of thing. And I think that is, I'm not saying that I have written him off. I certainly haven't. But when you talk about Daniel Hill and Richard Young and Jam Miller, it's like, where does Dre Washington fit into the pecking order? I just don't want anybody to forget about him. I'm still a huge Daniel Hill guy. I mean, I'm not going to jump off that bandwagon after one practice by any means. And he was technically, at least in the drills, he was working as the number 3 guy behind Rich Young and Jam Miller. But, Dre Washington, let's see how he continues to develop in fall camp. I don't think Alabama's going to have a 4-man rotation. I just really don't. Who is going to be the odd man out? I mean, even 3 might be a stretch, but I will go 3 for now. But who ends up being that guy? If Dre Washington ends up working his way into a role, was I completely wrong on Daniel Hill and he's a year away and he kind of fades as far as being RB4 when I was saying it was possible he was going to be RB1? Is it Jam Miller? Is it Richard Young? Like, I don't know what that's going to look like, but it's a good problem to have. And I think that that's what makes Alabama a national championship contender, is that they seem to be very competitive at a lot of these spots. So I'm looking forward to seeing how that develops. But just across the board, man, Dijon Lee, every time I see that cat in person, I don't care if he could be in year 4 at Alabama. And every time I get to go out to practice, I'm going to point out that dude's just not human. I mean, that's an alien if I've ever seen one. It towers over everybody, coaches, other players, and these are D1 athletes playing the same position at one of the biggest, if not the biggest program in all of college football, and he's just towering over every single one of them. Moo's fantastic. They were working on a mirror drill, and just, I was extremely impressed with what I saw from him physically too.
Guys, we appreciate you being here and want to remind you that as game day approaches, you want to look great, and we're going to help you out with that. Rowback.com, promo code Crimson20, 20% off all that Rowback gear. Bama polos, pullovers, all kind of really cool stuff there. Whether you pull for Alabama or maybe you're just a college football fan hanging out with us, they got you covered. Rowback.com, use our promo code Crimson20, and you'll get outfitted. But comfortable, really cool-looking gear. And it's Jake Coker approved. I mean, just ask him. Every time he's on Elephant in the Room, we talk about that. Caleb DeBoer, second season as Alabama's head coach, replacing Nick Saban, but this feels like his first real season. It's kind of last year was living in the shadow of the GOAT. Your thoughts on what he had to say?
Yeah, one of the things that stood out, and unfortunately I missed the beginning of it, was trying to find it. I was trying to get back from Tuscaloosa. I live in Chelsea, so it's a good little hike, and I wanted to make sure we were back as close to noon as possible where we could get this thing going. So I didn't stick around for the press conference. But one of the things that I heard, obviously I heard that about Dre Washington. One of the other things that he mentioned kind of briefly, but I thought it was interesting, is how much better the defense is doing as far as disguising what they're doing. And from an offensive perspective, which is what Kalen DeBoer is going to bring to the table, he would take note of that, because it's probably making their life a little bit more difficult. But this is year 2 under Kane Womack, right? I mean, guys are going to be more comfortable in what they're expected to do, and they will be able to disguise things a little more. I think they were kind of predictable a lot last season, especially in certain situations. Offenses were able to take advantage of it, Vanderbilt being one that stands out. I thought they just did a masterful job as far as game planning, especially on third downs, where it's like they could be in a 3rd and long and it was like guaranteed first down. It was like a 3rd and half a yard type of rate, it felt like, in 3rd and long situations for them. But I think they're able to be a little bit more diverse in the coverages that they're calling. I think they're able to disguise it a little bit better. And I just think that everybody is a lot more comfortable in the system. And I think that's going to create a much different product on defense overall. It's not just the secondary, it's really at all 3 levels, but just that very small comment about them being better about disguising things, that is going to make a fairly, just changing that will make a fairly significant difference. Even if you had the exact same guys with the exact same experience level from a season ago, and yet you don't. You have guys who are a lot more experienced. You have a lot more depth. And so, I mean, I'm really excited to see what this defense can do moving forward. He also brought up special teams, or it was special teams was brought up to him. And he pretty much said that he felt good about where they're at with the long snapper replacement, David Byrd. They were, he's talking about Connor Talty and how he kind of handled the kickoffs pretty well last year. That got his feet wet a little bit, but he's done, some good things this offseason. They really like how he's trending. But he also acknowledged that punter's kind of still up in the air. Asparuhoff he was out in the spring, and now he's trying to kind of make up. I mean, he's only a true freshman. You also got Blake Dowd, who is competing for that job as well. Sounds like it could probably be either one of those 2 guys. So that's something to keep an eye on. I'm feeling good. If he feels good about long snapper and kicker, I mean, Connor Talty's a former highly regarded, place kicking recruit coming out of high school. So, I mean, the fact that he's had a couple of years, I think that will only help him. And then, Byrd, I think, is going to be a very suitable replacement at long snapper. It's just about figuring out. You've got options at kick returner and punt returner. I'm not really concerned about that. They'll get quality play out of those 2 spots. I think the big question right now is going to be a punter.
Well, I'll tell you, the thing about it is that hey, can you still hear me? Is that when you go into the season without a kicker? Can you hear me? I mean,
yeah.
Okay,
I had those days too, brother.
Yeah, now this. It seems like every time you go into the season with question marks at kicker, bad things happen, right? So I really hope they solidify the kicking situation. Burnip was great. He was kind of not quite as good as A.J. Scott, but he was definitely a difference maker. Bad kicks turn into losses. I mean, let's be honest. You can't flip the field. You have problems like, when you're afraid to punt. That's bad. And we've seen it before. Or sometimes afraid to kick field goals. And it feels like this year there's a lot of question marks when it comes to the situation with the special teams. I know he says he's confident. What is he going to say? Well, we're really not sure.
True.
You know what? These guys suck, but we're just going to roll with it. I never understood why early Saban didn't care as much. And then all of a sudden, then Bama lost some of these games, like the kick six and, the LSU game. And he started to emphasize the kicking recruiting, and Alabama didn't lose games like that anymore. Kicking's a weapon. I know we didn't need it last year because we scored a lot of touchdowns in the red zone, but it might not be that way in 2025.
Well, punting, and punting or kicking, you're 100%. And punter, I think, is the bigger unknown right now. We've seen how much having a quality punter can help you as far as flipping the script on the opposing team. Like when you're kind of backed up in your own territory, but you got a guy who can absolutely boom it, and now it goes from you kind of being backed up to them being backed up, or they're expecting to get the football around midfield, and next thing you know, they're at the 30-yard line instead, and it's like, this is a good spot, but if we're not already pretty much within 20 yards of being able to kick a field goal, it changes the mindset, right? I mean, when you, as an offense, when you get the football around midfield to start a drive, you're a huge threat, because a lot of times you're thinking, we're going to take a shot. I mean, this is, you see that a ton, bare minimum. And the reason that you can do that is because you feel pretty safe about, okay, let's take a shot. Let's take a chance. If we don't get it, we're still only 20 yards away from being in field goal range, and we can put points on the board. So it's like this very confident mentality going in can really capture some momentum. And when you got a guy who can consistently prevent opposing offenses from being in those situations regularly, that can be massive for you, and it can really help your defense. And then now, I mean, if you get a great punt, now they're kind of deep in their territory, and the next thing you know, Alabama forces a turnover, which they've been very good at, or they were this past season. Now, I mean, you're pretty much in scoring position right there. Like, it can all work together very nicely. As far as kicker, we've seen what it looks like when Alabama doesn't have a good kicker. No one wants to go back to those days. I will have to see it with Connor Talty. I mean, I don't know enough about evaluating kickers, and especially a guy who really hadn't played, to know if he's good or not, especially in those pressure situations. But I mean, at the same time, I don't think there's any reason to think that he's not going to be good. Right. It's just, we got to sit around and wait to find out, because anybody that tells you that they're worried about it, I think the worry should only stem from not knowing, not because you think he's not going to be good.
Guys, we're brought to you by Pearl River Resort, Philadelphia, Mississippi. Mentioned them already. We appreciate them so much. You got Dancing Rabbit Golf Course. It's the Augusta you can play. 2 amazing 18-hole courses, the Azaleas and the Oaks. You're right there in the clubhouse. You can even rent a room in the clubhouse. Comes with a golf cart. You wake up, you're on the 18th green right there at Dancing Rabbit. You don't have to have a membership. And they call it the Augusta you can play. You can take that golf cart, ride it over to Silver Star, get in there, hit the slots, table games, restaurants like Mom and Them's and Philip M. Steakhouse. You got the sports book. You got concerts coming up. And like, this season's been great. Jeff Dunham, the comedian, was just there. Last year, I went and saw Boys to Men there with Big Sexy Elmo. We had a blast. And they have a bunch of other really cool stuff coming up, plus the water park. We appreciate them for being a part of what we do, and ask you to go over there and share your experience with us. All right, Clint, day 2 of fall camp is coming up Thursday.
Yeah, we're more of the same as today. We'll just be touching on different things. I'm going to go back out there again tomorrow. I think practice is, I think it starts maybe 15 minutes later than it did today, but it's still going to be a morning practice. So don't know what that means as far as kind of my routine. As I get done with practice, immediately go to the car, immediately start writing up my practice observations. You can find that over at A to Z Sports or at Cover Crimson. I'm sharing it to both places. And then I get on the road. And so, I mean, tomorrow it might be 15, 20 minutes later than it was today. It just depends. But we're going to keep talking about all this stuff, man. There's so much going on. I don't know. Maybe it's just the fact. I mean, it's been we're closing in on 5 years since Alabama won a national championship. I mean, this idea that Alabama was winning one, it seemed like every other year pretty much. At most, you go 2 years without one. Now you're looking at close to half a decade. Like, the excitement of getting back to that point, having a team that can be competitive. Like, I don't know. I haven't looked this forward to a season in a very, very long time. And I hope everybody else feels the same. I know college football's changed with NIL and all that stuff, but I think this team's going to be competitive. I think it's going to be fun. I've always said it's a fun offensive scheme. It's a fun defensive scheme, and you got cats that can run it. So, I'm looking forward to seeing how this team progresses and trends in fall camp, and then I'm looking forward to seeing how things take shape when they take the field against Florida State for week 1, man. But we'll definitely be back tomorrow, and we'll have our typical routine. I'm looking forward to it for sure.
Yeah, it's fun. I mean, we're within football. Make sure you guys check out Elephant in the Room. That was yesterday. We'll have another episode coming up as well. Clint and I will be back tomorrow. Roll Tide, everybody. We're playing football again and back out on the field in Tuscaloosa, and that's a great thing.
Escape to Pearl River Resort.